Now joined by TSN hockey insider Chris Johnston. Chris, you were at the Florida Panthers team hotel today. What stood out about how they're handling the fallout from what happened in Game 1?
Well, you got the sense Paul Maurice in particular might have wished he woke up in another city, somewhere other than Toronto, because, he said he turned on his TV and he saw every hit that Sam Bennett had thrown since he was 12 years old as part of the clips. And we can appreciate, first of all, when there is a play that generates a lot of discussion, contentious type of hit, in this case an injury to Anthony Stolarz in that Game 1, that, a place like Toronto, it's going to get blown up a little bit and magnified. And Maurice did mention, too, that he's in a bit of a bad mood. I mean, it gets a little bit lost in the discussion around this game, but the Panthers lost Game 1. We're down 4-1 at one point, down 3-1 in the first period, really didn't look sharp to start that. And so, maybe that contributed to it. But, Sam Bennett showed some contrition. Of course, Anthony Stolarz being a former teammate. And, you get the sense they're ready to move along on the Florida side. But, it was sort of a theatrical kind of fun Paul Maurice day. And you were at the Leafs. What was the mood down the road there?
They are definitely ready to move on. I was trying to ask Craig Berube about the league not disciplining Bennett, and he interrupted my question. He said, I don't want to talk about it. We're moving on. That's not a surprise. Berube has been stressing discipline and composure really from Game 1 of the playoffs. It's kind of funny because when he was a player, he was pretty feisty, and he admitted in his playing days, if this had happened to him, he'd probably be the first guy jumping in there seeking retribution. Not the same game now. Jake McCabe, the players, they've heard that message. McCabe pointing out, listen, the Panthers scored on the power play in Game 1. The Leafs did not. Florida won the special teams battle. The Leafs cannot be spending time in the box moving forward here. So the message has been received. They're not looking for retribution. They also want to move on. But what we can't ignore is that the goaltending matchup has now changed. It's Joseph Woll entering this series, even though Stolarz hasn't been officially ruled out of Game 2. It's really hard to imagine him suiting up considering how he left Game 1. So I'm wondering, what's your perspective on how the goaltending matchup has now changed in this series?
Well, there's a big difference, right? Joseph Woll's a little smaller than Anthony Stolarz, maybe a little less swagger, certainly doesn't talk as much on the ice. But the one thing working in the favor of the Leafs here is that they're comfortable playing in front of him. And he's been in this situation in past playoff series, having come in midway through the last 2 years. I think he had a pretty strong season in a lot of ways for the Leafs. He was outperformed by Stolarz, and that's why he's been put to the background here through the first round against the Ottawa Senators. But, this is not a new player in the environment. But, look, it's going to be a little different. There's a lot of focus on him in spotlight now. He's going up against Sergei Bobrovsky, who's looking to bounce back from his own Game 1 in this series. And so, we'll see. I mean, I don't know where it's going to go with Stolarz next, but you're right. Given what we saw at the end of that game, the fact he was taken to hospital on Monday night, I can't imagine we're going to see him anytime soon. And so, Joseph Woll, step right up.
Berube was asked about maybe going back to the goalie rotation in the first round. He said, right now I'm focused on Stolarz. Today, he was talking more about Joseph Woll, and he was stressing about how this guy takes such good care of himself and is always prepared. He said he's one of the most dedicated players he's ever seen in that respect. And he also pointed out that Woll did a great job when Anthony Stolarz was out for a couple months with that knee injury this season. And Woll does have good numbers in the playoffs, a .924 save percentage in his 8 appearances. The Leafs looking for more of that as this series moves on.